Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I have a pretty mundane glitch that was actually kind of creepy, and something about it was seriously unsettling. But I'm not really sure what the heck it was or what it was about. What's worse, it wasn't just me that experienced it. My boyfriend also saw the whole thing play out. It actually happened just the other day, so the whole thing is still pretty fresh in my memory. I was downstairs in the laundry room, trying to fill the washing machine with a load of laundry, and when I got to the end of the current basket, I determined that there was a bit more space left in the machine. I yelled for my boyfriend to bring down another basket so I could finish filling it. He runs up and grabs one, and then rushes downstairs to get it to me. I started loading the clothing into the machine, and I get it all filled up, and as soon as I close the lid on the machine, the light in the laundry room seemed to go out. I kind of screamed as it scared me, mostly because of the timing, and my boyfriend just laughed at me, mentioning that the breaker must have tripped or something. I asked him to go check, and he then went over to where the switch was and commented that it had been flipped to the off position. That was obviously weird as we were both there by the washing machine, but it wasn't a huge deal, you know? I just thought that maybe I didn't flip it on all the way and the timing was just impeccable. But then, it got weird. My boyfriend flipped the switch back to the on position, and as soon as the light clicked on, the room was filled with the brightest flash of light that I have ever seen. It was as if someone had taken the flash from a Kodak camera and turned it up to 11. What was weirder was that it wasn't just a flash and then gone. It was a bright flash, and then it was like it was fading in slow motion, like it was dialed up, and then someone was slowly turning it back down. As the light faded, I saw what looked like silhouettes of a person walking from the door to the washing machine, and then saw them loading what looked like clothes into the washing machine, and then I saw a second silhouette walking down with another basket of clothing. It took me a few moments to realize what I was seeing, but I was basically watching what had just happened in some sort of a detail-less playback form. And after a few seconds, the whole thing played out and it was over, and the light was gone. I just stood there staring at the room and then over to my boyfriend, but the look on his face screamed what I was thinking. I asked him if he saw what I had just seen, and he just kind of nodded like, "Yep, let's not talk about it, ever." And I said okay. I checked to make sure that the washer had kicked on, and then we walked toward the door to go back upstairs. We both went up and didn't talk about the freaky event that we just both witnessed. Unfortunately, that's the whole story. We both saw this play out, but haven't really discussed it because it was weird, and neither of us have seen anything like it since. The laundry got done as normal, if anyone cares, and the basement still feels like a completely normal room. I have no idea what it was, but if anyone has any thoughts about this, please do feel free to share them. I have a bit of a strange glitch in the Matrix that's also a bit boring and short, but it's one of those weird things that I cannot explain. I recently decided that I wanted to get a new car because I was able to save up a bit of cash, and I wanted to go ahead and sell my old car, which was a 2006 Nissan. It's a nice car, but it was just getting up there in years, even though I had barely driven it. It was 16 years old, and it only had 100,000 miles on it, and that was a fairly recent achievement. As such, I put it online and I was getting hits like crazy for it. Then, I got someone that offered me $150 over what I asked if he could buy it that night. So, I went ahead and said that it was his. Then I realized that I needed to get the car cleaned out right away if the guy was going to come and buy it that night. I got it out into the driveway and I was cleaning everything out of it. I emptied out the seats and then opened the glove box and I grabbed all my CDs out of it. I then hit the eject button and I got the CD out of it and I was placing it back in its case. I will say that I hadn't listened to CDs in a while thanks to my Bluetooth earphones. But the last CD that I had apparently listened to in my car was California by Blink-182. I remember the artwork on the album and the cover because I thought that it was super neat artwork and I genuinely loved the album. So, I finished cleaning out the car, made sure that I had everything ready to go with it, and I waited for the guy to show up and check out the car. He came over with someone else, and they were looking at the car, and then he asked if he could test drive it. I told him that I didn't have any issue with that. I handed him the key, he gets in the car and then turns it on. And the second that he did, the radio kicked on, and it kicked on to a song off California by Blink-182. I kind of just glanced at the radio, and he laughed, making a comment about how it was good that the radio worked, and then he pushed the eject button, and out came the album. He handed it my way and I grabbed it, and I let him take the test drive. While he was gone, I went inside to where I put the CD case for the CD, and I opened it. And sure enough, the CD was sitting right there in the case. I was seriously confused. I mean, how the hell did I end up with 2 CDs? How did a second copy of this exact album end up in the CD player after I had taken it out and then put it away? I just put it in the case and I decided that I would think about it later. The guy then came back and said that he wanted the car, and then we finished out the deal. After all that wrapped back up, I went back inside and I was thinking about the second CD, and I was trying to remember if I may have bought the second copy of it, or if I had a friend that had maybe left it. But I just couldn't think of anything. I decided to grab the case and open it to look at the 2 CDs to see how exact of a copy it was. And to my surprise, the extra one was gone. In the case was just the 1 album and not 2. So, not only had the Matrix gifted me an extra album, but it also took it back after the fact. Like I said, I know this wasn't as weird or creepy as the other stories, but to me, it was still a really weird happening that I can't explain. Even worse, I no longer have the proof of it happened because the copy disappeared after the fact. I haven't had any other experiences since this happened, and I cannot explain how it happened, but it was seriously freaky for me. For my birthday last year, my boyfriend bought me a pair of earrings because I wanted to get my ears pierced really badly, but hadn't gotten the confidence to do so. So him buying me the earrings was enough to push me to do it because he had spent money on them and they were so cute too. The earrings in question were these little bird cages with tiny little bluebirds in them. When I say little, I mean little. The cages were about the size of my thumbnail, and the bird was obviously much, much smaller. Despite being so tiny, they were really well detailed. The little birds had colored beaks and black dotted eyes. I loved them because they were obviously beautiful, but also because I have a tattoo that is very similar on my left shoulder. I have a gold bird cage with a blue bird in it that's surrounded by music notes. I thought that it was the coolest thing that I found earrings that looked similar to my tattoo. So I went and I got my ears pierced, and I made it a point to wear them as often as I can. There was one night where I decided to stay at my boyfriend's house, and before bed, I went to take a shower. Obviously, I take my earrings out when I take a shower, as I wouldn't want them to get wet or have part of them end up down the drain or something like that. I remember taking them off and then setting them on the container of cotton swabs in the back corner of the sink. Unfortunately, when I left for work that morning, I completely forgot to grab them. I was pretty upset because my boyfriend has a cat that likes to destroy things and likes to knock them around, and the shape and size of that earring is perfect for his cat to knock around the bathroom. I called my boyfriend when I got to work and I told him that I had forgotten them and asked him if he could grab them and then keep them safe until he could get them back to me. And I mentioned that I didn't want Milo, his cat, to get to them. He said that he would grab them and keep them in his car, and that he would bring them over after work that evening. I thanked him and then moved on with my day until that evening when he came over. When he came over, I then mentioned the earrings and then he pulled them from his jacket pocket, and I was legitimately confused. The earring in his hand looked very much like my earrings, but they weren't the blue birds in cages. They were little pink birds. I kind of laughed and asked if he had bought me a second pair, but he said that these were the ones that I had left over at his place. I shook my head no and kind of just stared at them awkwardly. I mentioned that the ones that he got me had blue birds and not pink ones, but he was adamant that these were the correct earrings. We actually had a small argument about them, him saying that the birds had always been pink, and me telling them that they were for sure blue. I even mentioned that they matched my tattoo, which had a blue bird on it. And strangely enough, he agreed that that would make sense, but then he kept pushing that the bird had always been pink. Obviously, I took them and I wear them pretty frequently still. But I am still at a loss for how the birds managed to change from blue and matching my tattoo to pink and not matching it. They're still cute and still my favorite ones, but I just really think that it's weird that they're different from what I remember. I even went and checked all around his bathroom the next time that I was at his place, but there were no other earrings there. So I guess that these little pink birds took the place of my blue ones, or that I shifted to a reality where he bought me pink birds and not the blue ones. I have heard and read several Glitch in the Matrix stories that kind of prove that both cats and dogs exist outside of the confines of the Matrix. But I have a bird that seems to be able to operate outside of it as well. I have two cockatiels that have been together since they were hatched, and I came into them a few years ago. The pair are two boys, one named Froggy and the other one named Chipper. And yeah, I know they're dumb names, but it's what the previous owner had called them, and I'm not going to change them now. Chipper is a fairly calm and normal bird. He's really sweet and very friendly, but also very patient and calm while being handled. Froggy, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. He doesn't mind being held or handled, but he is energetic as hell. He likes to fly around as much as he can. He sings any chance he gets, and he also likes to nip at people for the fun of it. He's also the one of them that I personally believe is able to do things that he shouldn't be able to. What's weird is that he's done the same things twice, but in the opposite way. It will make sense here in a few minutes. The first time he confused me happened about 6 months ago. I had both Froggy and Chipper out of their cage while I was home working. because they like to walk around and I have the room cleaned up enough that they won't cause any problems. I let them out of their cage during the day, but I do not let them out of the room, and they are pretty well happy with this arrangement. So, I was working in the room with them, doing what I needed to do, with Chipper sitting on my shoulder and whistling randomly, when I noticed that Froggy was nowhere to be seen. I looked around in all his hiding places, under the desk, on the top of the bookshelf, and then I turned around to look, and I noticed that he was in his cage, and he was dozing off on the perch. It confused me because there was no way that he could have gotten in the cage, because I closed it up when they're out, so they are kind of forced to stay out for a while. I kind of just accepted that maybe I had left the door open, and then he figured out how to close it, and I just didn't notice. I accepted that possibility for that event, but it was the second thing that Froggy did that confused the hell out of me. A few days after that, I had a pretty bad headache in the middle of the day, somewhere around noon, so I decided that I needed to go ahead and get them back in the cage while I took a short nap. I get them in, I lock the cage, and I shut the door to the office where their cage is, and then I go out to the couch to lie down. I fell asleep for a little while, and then I woke up to a bit of a pinching feeling on my nose. I open my eyes, confused, and I look down, and what do I see? Froggy, sitting on my chest and nipping at my nose, and then making his little chirp song when he notices that I'm awake. It took me a few moments to really have what was happening click. At first, I chuckled at it because I thought that it was cute that he was waking me up. But then it clicked that he shouldn't be out of the cage, nor in the living room. I get him off my chest and I sit up. Then I look over to the office. The door was shut, like completely shut and latched. I thought that maybe the door had just shut itself with the weight of the door, despite the fact that has literally never happened before. I just went in to get him back to his cage, but much to my surprise, his cage was still shut and locked, and Chipper was just sitting there staring at me like, why is he out and I'm not? The whole time that I'm trying to get Froggy back in the cage, he was just sitting on my shoulder, bouncing up and down, and singing like he was just happily celebrating his victory. I honestly have no idea how he got out of the cage, much less the room. The cage door was locked and the room door was latched, so I don't see how the little dude could have gotten out, but he did. At this point, I'm just assuming that Froggy has mastered the art of teleportation through the Matrix, and because he's a simple little guy, he just uses that power to get into and out of his cage for the fun of it. I wanted to start by saying that I love your podcast, and I am super curious about the things that people experience on a frequent basis. I have a bit of a story that happened to me, and it may not be as weird as some of the others, but I think it's worth sharing. It was about a week ago when I had this super weird thing that happened to me, and I genuinely cannot seem to be able to place it or figure it out. It was early in the morning, and I was going through my routine, going to the bathroom, taking a shower, brushing my teeth, and all of that stuff. And after I was done with my normal morning stuff, I figured that I should go ahead and take my dog for a walk. I should mention that at this point, I had not looked outside, nor had I checked my phone for the weather, and I had no idea what it was like outside. As I was walking toward the kitchen to at least get the Keurig set up, I thought out loud, I wonder what the weather's like right now. And as soon as I finished this thought, I heard what sounded like a radio voice say something like, "It is really coming down out there right now, and I don't recommend going out for too long." It seriously sounded like a radio had kicked on, like when you have an alarm clock that's set for radio. It had a bit of static and the voice saying what it said, and then it was gone. I was a bit creeped out by it because the voice was completely disembodied and I had no idea where it had come from. I checked my phone to make sure that it wasn't something on that. I don't have any of those home speaker assistant things, so it wasn't one of those. I went downstairs to my bedroom to see if I had a radio that may have kicked on in there, but there was nothing. After a few seconds, I just kind of shrugged it off, but then I thought, I wonder if that weird voice was right. I then went over to my front door and I opened it, and the second that I did, the weather seemed to change from still to downpouring. It was like I opened the door as soon as the storm was about to start. It was definitely cloudy, but it wasn't raining yet. Then I opened the door, and the rain started. I honestly felt a bit weirded out by this, and not only was this weird radio voice right about its forecast became right at the minute that I went to look outside. Obviously, I didn't take my pup for a walk, much to his disappointment. I've never heard anything like this again in my place, and I still to this day have no idea what the hell it was. I made sure several times to make sure that I didn't have any radios that may have clicked on. I've never read about this happening to anyone else, but if anyone here had ever experienced a disembodied voice tell them the forecast at the exact second that they asked the universe for it, then I would love to know more about it. I have a really strange and fairly boring or mundane glitch, but I think it's worth telling because of how weird it was, honestly. I'm 17 and I still live with my parents, but I have a part-time job in my own bank account. I also have an Amazon account, and I spend way too much of my money on random things that I need or want from Amazon, so I oftentimes get packages delivered to the front door. This information is relevant to what happened, trust me. On the day in question, I was expecting a package from Amazon with a new wireless charger for my phone because I had accidentally broken the plug on my old one. It was a weekday in March because I was in school and my parents were at work until around 5:30. I also had the night off from work, so it was going to be a good night. When I got home from school, I saw a box on the front porch and I knew that it was going to be my charger. I grabbed the box, dropped it on the counter, and I used one of the kitchen knives to cut the tape along the top to open the box up. I cut the tape, tossed the knife on the counter, and I opened it, grabbing my new charger. Then I broke the box down and I placed it by the front door so that I could toss it into the recycling later. And then I placed the charger on the counter. I planned on grabbing it and taking it upstairs, but I had forgotten it on the counter for whatever reason, and I went upstairs to my bedroom. I sat at my desk and I started doing some stuff on my computer until I started feeling a bit tired. I leaned back in my desk chair and I guess I dozed off because the next thing that I knew, I woke up to the front door of the house opening and then closing. I shook myself awake and I headed down the stairs to greet my mom. I said, "Hey." She said, "Hi," and she then told me that I got a package. I asked if I just didn't hear the delivery driver. I mentioned that I brought the package in and that it was my charger. But then she handed me the Amazon box. I grabbed it, but then looked over at the counter where the charger should have been, and it wasn't there. I then looked over to the front door where I put the box for the recycling, and it was also gone. I was incredibly confused as I knew that I had already opened the box and I had gotten my charger out when I got home. But yet, I was holding a sealed box that I assumed was containing the charger that I had ordered. I grabbed a knife and I cut it open, and sure enough, it was my charger. Now, I know this isn't too creepy, but it was really weird to me, honestly. I've thought about some of the possibilities, but none of them really make sense. One thought is that my mom could have gotten some new Amazon packing tape just to retape the box shut and then mess with me. But she couldn't have gotten the tape, and also, why would she do that, right? I also checked my Amazon app because it says the time when packages are delivered, and the time it says is that it was delivered at 4:43 p.m., which is about 45 minutes after I got home. So, there was no way that I could have brought it in when I had gotten home. So yeah, that's my glitch. I somehow managed to bring in a charger that hadn't been delivered, and I even opened it, but I forgot it on the counter when I went upstairs. It was then delivered a second time about 45 minutes later, and my mother brought the box in, still sealed. It was crazy to me, honestly, but I don't think that I'm going to ever have any explanation for it other than it was just a weird occurrence. I have two weird glitch occurrences that happened on the same road, and they happen a couple of months apart from each other. This road is one that I take to get to my sister's house, and is one that I like to think that I know pretty well since I'm on it about 3 or 4 times a month. Well, depending on how frequently I go over there. It's a pretty standard 4-lane highway that runs north and south, and it crosses a few other main highways in my county. Basically, it's one of those highways that you take to get to the bigger highways, and being 4 lanes, it's pretty clear which way you're going and where you need to be to get off the highway. So, the first one is a bit weird, but also fairly short. I was driving down the highway to get to one of the exits so that I could get on the main freeways. I was cruising at around the speed limit, which is 65, and I was pretty focused on what was going on in front of me, so it wasn't like I was distracted. A bit up the road, I see what looks like someone that had pulled over with a flat tire. I remember seeing the car, thinking, "Ooh, that's a nice car." And then thinking that it really sucked to have to pull over on the highway to change a tire. I remember thinking how much it would make me panic that someone would be speeding and not paying attention and then hit the car while I was changing it. I then also remember thinking that I should move over to the left lane so that I could give them some extra space because, that would be the polite thing to do. I glanced up at my rear view and my side view to make sure that there were no cars coming, and then I hit my signal to get over, and I looked back forward, and the car was gone. I slowly drifted over to the left lane to give space to a car 100% was not there. It wasn't like I had managed to pass the location before getting over, because I still had a few moments before I was going to get to where they were. But when I looked back, there was seriously no car there. I was upset because this now non-existent car made me look like an idiot, changing lanes just to change back like a dumbass. The second event was actually on this same stretch, but it was at the exit to get onto the other highway. This highway runs north and south, and it intersects several other highways that go east and west. Each exit for the other highways becomes what is known as a cloverleaf exit. If you don't know what a cloverleaf exit is, it's a type of exit that goes in a full circle to get you off one highway onto the other. It's called that because of the four exits, an east and west exit on each side of the north and south highway, and it all looks kind of like a four-leaf clover. So, I go to get off the north and south highway to get onto the east and west highway, and I get into the clover leaf to get off one highway and then onto the other. I drive the full circle, turning to the right following the whole clover leaf, and then exit it onto the other highway, or so I thought. It took me a couple of seconds before I realized what had happened. I somehow managed to get on the cloverleaf exit, go around the circle to get onto the east-west highway, and then ended up back on the first highway going north. There was literally no way for me to have done this based on the exit that I took and where I was going. And when I say literally, I mean literally. These exits aren't roundabouts, so there's no way to end up back where you came from. But I had. I genuinely had no idea how it happened, but it did. I just sat there staring at the signs on the side of the road and looking at the next exit, which was a full exit away from where I was supposed to go. I really don't know what this was or how the hell it happened, but that was the last time the creepy stuff ever happened on the highway. And thankfully, it's been pretty normal ever since. I have two really weird events that happened to me, and I have no idea what to really make of them, nor if they are actually glitches in the Matrix. But I figured that I would go ahead and share them for the sake of entertainment or whatever. These both happened a few years back. There's no connection between the two other than I was involved, and they both kind of happened while I was at work. Well, that, and they were both weird as hell, at least to me. The first one is a bit short, but that doesn't make it any less freaky. I work as a server at a fairly large bar in a grill chain. We get a lot of people that come in over the weekend, typically starting Friday night, so it's not unusual for us to have a lot of people that are ready to keep things flowing smoothly. There was one Friday night that I worked where it seemed like we were just not going to get a lot of business, which was fine by me. Obviously, this didn't make my manager too happy as we were eating labor hours with so many people on the clock but no money coming in. He waited until around 7:30, which was typically when we would all be running around like crazy. But when business didn't pick up, he decided that a few of us needed to go home. He sent a few of the kitchen staff home and a couple of the wait staff, and basically brought us down to our weekday staff. While he was deciding who to send home, I literally said the words, "Well, as soon as they leave, we're going to get half a dozen parties in the door at the same time, and it's going to be a struggle." He laughed and then told me that since we were past the busiest hour, it wasn't likely as that has almost literally never happened since he's worked there. But sure enough, as soon as the last person that he decided to send home walked out the back and left, we had literally 6 parties walk through the door. 6, which is half a dozen, and it wasn't just parties of 2 people. It was parties of 2, 3, 4 with kids, and so on. And they all walked in within the same 2-minute period. Needless to say, he claimed that I jinxed the store by saying what I said, and I was just more so proud that I had somehow predicted the number of parties that were going to walk in precisely. Even crazier, that was it for the entire night. We closed at 9:30, so about 2 hours later, there weren't any other parties beyond those 6 that came in. It was a really weird Friday and such a mundane event, but it was still really weird to me that it pretty much happened as I said it would. The other event was super weird too, but it kind of happened the other way around. It was the midday shift in the middle of the week, so it was pretty slow. On these shifts, I like to take my time and talk to the customers a bit more, be a little more friendly, and this is especially true if they have young kids. I love children, so I love to just chat with the little ones while I work as it makes me so much happier. A young lady and her 2 children come in, and they get seated in my section, and I come over to chat shortly while I take their order. I get their food and I bring it, and then I come back while they're eating just to do my check-in. I asked the son, who had to be around 4 or 5, if he likes his chicken tenders. And then he looked up at me with a deadpan stare and says, "Don't burn your house down." I asked him what he said, and he just smiled and said that he likes his chicken. Yeah, it was a bit weird, but I just moved on with my shift. That night, I was making dinner for my roommate and myself, and something happened with a pan that caused a bunch of oil to spill onto the burner, and it caught on fire. I panicked. I wasn't sure of what to do, and I was screaming as it started to catch on the back wall behind the stove. I admit, I didn't know what to do and I felt extremely stupid. But my roommate ran in with a small fire extinguisher we had that was rated for kitchen fires and then blasted it, putting it out. I was just standing there with a shocked look on my face when she looked over at me and said, "Geez, Liz, don't burn the house down." And as soon as she said that, I just freaked out. The fire was enough to make me stress, but the fact that she said almost the same thing as that kid, and the fact that he said that to me that day, was seriously terrifying. Well, those are my 2 events that happened to me that I can remember. It was weird to me that they both happened at my work, and maybe the first one was a complete coincidence. Or maybe my particular Chili's just happens to be in a location where the veil between reality and the matrix is thin. I mean, who knows? And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. I would also like to give some extra love to my Patreon members, my channel members, and also my tippers. Thank you so much. If you would like to extend a little bit more support for the channel, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below. If you would like to become a Patreon member, a channel member, a tipper, or even to buy merch, check out the links in the description below. Again, thank you. And I hope you stay scared, because your fear feeds me.